Hello everyone, Shkonda here and it's Honey at Home. Today I would like to bring your attention to one of the cartoon series that I found interesting, which is Final Space. It also will be a little bit bittersweet.
Because unfortunately, as the creator of the show, Alan Rogers, mentioned, season 3 will be the last season of the show. At least as of now.
So, I don't know if many of you have heard of this show. Like, it is in a sci-fi setting and Final Space pretty much, kind of says it in the title of itself because, right, there's space. I guess it's not enough reason really for justifying that it's going to be a sci-fi show, but nonetheless, it is a sci-fi show. So the whole story goes around the main character, Gary Goodspeed, who's... when you first start to watch the show, you definitely expect something different from it, because it really starts off extremely goofy. So Gary is super goofy. He really behaves in a really weird way, and we already learned at the very beginning of the show that he spent 5 years sentenced in a intergalactic prison. It's like a spaceship is going through the space and the orbit. However, you wouldn't believe that somebody like Gary could do something really wrong or bad. So what really happened is that he actually had to serve a way shorter sentence, but because he was always trying to get the cookie, which he wasn't supposed to get, because he really was eager to get this chocolate chip cookie that he was so obsessed with, his sentence was prolonged every time he was trying to get it. That's how he pretty much increased his sentence to almost 5 years. In the meantime, he's been recording the videos for a girl from Space Guard called Quinn, that pretty much, because of her, that's how he ended up in prison, just because he fell in love with her, and because he's always been trying to act wannabe macho or something like that, with sometimes of epic phrases coming out of his mouth, so much grounds for that. He pretty much messed up a little bit, and there was a little episode in the bar that got him in prison at the end of the day. So, here is Gary. He's almost about to finish his sentence and just to live on his life, which he pretty much wasn't really sure on how he's supposed to live, and then he finds a really weird alien that appears around him that was trying to escape from the Lord Commander, who is the really characteristic villain of the show. That's just appears to be at the very beginning that he is evil because he just wants to do evil things. Basically, he was looking after the Mooncake, this little alien that Gary became friends with, and also really goofy and funny looking little green blurb that just fly in and pretty much can destroy almost anything that exists in the world. And pretty much Lord Commander is trying to get the Mooncake because Mooncake is the last piece of his weapon to destroy the planets. Then the whole story of Gary and Wheels, and as usually goes with the series, despite Gary being super goofy, he's being extremely courageous and brave, and he's trying to do everything for his friends. And he becomes friends with the anthropomorphic cat called Avocado. It's a nice character. He's one of the greatest Lords, Commanders, Assassins, Generals. He basically wasn't part of the super squad that was supposed to get Mooncake from the ship on which Gary was. However, Avocado kinda became a captive in this battle, and after a certain period of time, he found some good in himself and became friends with Gary, and they both wanted to save Mooncake. And besides that, Lord Commander also captured Avocado's son, Little Cato. Not that creative name, I know. Besides that, Galaxy is slowly crumbling, and because of the event Final Space, and Lord Commander is trying to get into Final Space to become even more powerful because he's already having some telekinetic superpowers similar to what people in Star Wars have. So he's kind of a Darth Vader, but fully evil. The first season, they've been trying to fight Lord Commander, trying to get the little Kato back, save Mooncake, still save the whole of the galaxy, where we also actually see the certain development of the character, which I really like, because, you know, sometimes it could be just functions of their characters and how they're supposed to act. There was, of course, Kevin, who is really annoying robot that was supposed to accompany Gary for all 5 years of his sentence. To say that Gary detests Kevin is to say nothing, just because, well, Kevin is probably really the most annoying character of the whole show. However, sometimes he does good things, sometimes even unintentionally. And he also has this a little bit of a maniac side in it, where he sometimes even trying to kill the person he likes the most, who's Gary. Kind of. But yeah, so they're really playing around with different developments of the characters, and they don't trying to keep them in the same lane, which is really nice, and you actually see how they develop throughout the show. To say that the characters are weak, I wouldn't really say that. Plot is also fine, so for me it was quite a big surprise that they actually decided not to put on the show. However, what I also noticed in the ratings, the third season didn't come up to be as a big success as season 1 and season 2. Season 2 was actually more successful than season 1, which says a lot. Like, there was some hype built around the show. And I was really inspired and enjoyed that the fact that Olaf Rogers started off on YouTube from the very beginning of his career of being director and writer, like scriptwriter and stuff. And then I also watched the pilot episode that he used in order to pitch the TBS, the whole series that ended up going on TBS and then going to the Adult Swim, where it also had even higher ratings. And yet, I was really waiting for the third season to come out. You know, the whole show, it really plays around with different topics. Despite the shows kind of being seemingly lighthearted and maybe a little bit too cartoonish, it really reminded me of something like Futurama. Not in the sense of how they build the show, they make it all satirical and stuff, but more like they still try to keep the really interesting story, and the whole series, besides that, is playing around the topics of loneliness, how to deal with different obstacles in your life, including the loss of your son, father, loved one, being abandoned by a family. You know, maybe it all sounds a little bit too much for a show that seems to be like it's still, despite that being an animated show, it still really develops a lot of important topics that are good for all ages. And I always wondered why people, after a certain period of age, trying to think too highly of themselves in relation to the animation show, because sometimes with age people are, for some reason, not treating them as seriously, because I feel like has been a lot of things that are doing a great job in order to talk about important and high topics. Of course, there are animated shows that are for kids, sort of that, but there was also a lot of real life action films for kids as well. So, you know, it's really weird prejudice against cartoons that I still feel like sometimes are happening around people. And series like this, and I think Rick and Morty predominantly because it is too weird and edgy at some point of a time, that's why clearly it is for an older audience. That's what makes this piece of art to move forward. And maybe I'm now praising Final Space a bit too much. Clearly, it's not the masterpiece, and it's probably not the best show that was ever created, but still, I feel like it has its own beauty in it, and I feel like at the very beginning I really changed my opinion about the show, because I started to watch it off without having high expectations, and it was a bit random. I just felt like, okay, I just want to see something light, you know. While there has been other suggestions by Netflix that there were some other cartoons, that are also cartoons that are trying to be, you know, all this edgy and cool, like there was something about the stupid basketball team or whatever, or even Family Guy by itself. I don't really feel like it is a show that I enjoyed to watch. And Final Space was definitely a revelation for me in terms of how nicely done it is and how actually the authors really like what they've been doing. I hope that something will happen because clearly who owns the license owns the whole show, and after this merger maybe there will be something that will allow the creators to continue and finish this whole series, just how it happened with Rick and Morty back in the days, because initially they were also having troubles with funding until they actually got a big offer to make like 10 seasons of the show, all in all. So maybe there will be something like this happening with Final Space as well. Because, I really feel like the show has a potential, and I hope the creators still has something to say. And according to Olaf Rogers, the initial creator of the show, they have that. So I'm really curious on how Gary Goodspeed and his friends will be able to save the universe at this point of a time. And whether the show will actually continue and how the ending will look like. Well, thank you all guys for listening. I hope you will go and check out Final Space. Maybe this way, if we all together would go watch the show, and if people really genuinely enjoy it, it will probably show that it has a potential and people should invest their time and money in it. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.